Hey, movie lovers, citizens of Earth, and, well, I guess Frank Sinatra fans will welcome you as well. Welcome to Extra Entertainment Extra. That was the lyrical stylings of Robert Davi, who joins me in studio. We also have Victor Altamare. They're co-starring in a movie called The Great Chameleon. But I just want to start. I didn't know. When you came here today, you said, here, my CD, let's play some of this. That sounds great.
Thank you. Yeah, it just came out this week in Canada.
Yeah.
It went to number 6 in the States, jazz, and it's been doing well. I've been selling out the Venetian and Vegas and touring in the States, and we'll be touring in Toronto, Canada pretty soon.
Well, I'll tell you, there are some photographs in the press package that you gave me here. Well, there's one of you with Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, I did my first film with Sinatra in 1977.
What was the movie?
Contract on Cherry Street.
Yeah.
It was his mom's favorite book, and New York story, detective and gangsters and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, were you? You must have been gobsmacked, absolutely in awe to meet him.
You got. I think he was the greatest entertainer of our time because he conquered film, television, music, radio, TV. I mean, every medium. And his Picasso-esque contribution to music is astounding. Yeah. But he also was a guy that was the first guy that came out against racial bigotry and anti-Semitism. And also what he did for the Italian immigrant. He was the first superstar that gave Italians a certain kind of, and any immigrant actually, a connection to America and a certain dignity. So Sinatra, for me, so it's a tribute. Quincy Jones gave me you can take a look at that. He came to my show and then left this on his Facebook page.
Well, Quincy, of course, worked with Sinatra and did arrangements and that sort of thing. So I'll read it. It says, as FS would say, you know you got to be tight with Sinatra when you call him FS, would say, cuckoo, wow, I've never heard anyone come this close to Sinatra sound and still be himself. Many try, but Robert Davi has the voice, tone, the flavor, and the swagger. What a surprise. He absolutely touched me down to my soul and brought back the essence and soul of old Blue Eyes himself. That must have blown your mind.
Blown my mind. And I didn't even know it because friends of mine said, you can't, like 2 days later. Yeah. Because I knew he was at the show, and he told me, he said, he gave me a huge compliment, and Quincy's one of the great figures of our world, you know? And they sent me that, and I was absolutely thrilled because that kind of, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback on the music from Phil Ramone producing it to the other critics and stuff, Don Heckman, but to have Q come along and give you that.
And Phil, Victor, we're going to talk about The Great Chameleon in just a second.
This is great.
But I just wanted to, Phil Ramone, we know him as a mega producer of Billy Joel and lots of things, but he worked with Sinatra too, didn't he?
Did the duets.
Did the duets album with
Tony
Sinatra.
Bennett. Did Barbra Streisand. I mean, he's done Paul Simon. I mean, Phil Ramone he passed away about 3 months ago.
And you have half of another
album that we were working on, the last tracks from him, and we'll be finishing that up later on this year. Not with Phil, unfortunately, but Al Schmidt will still be involved in it. And it's
who's the great engineer.
Yeah.
The album is called Davi Sings Sinatra on the Road to Romance, and it's available in Canada on June 11th, so it's out in stores right now.
It's out in stores,
you can
HMV,
get it.
Right? They have that, and it's on iTunes, Amazon, and I'd appreciate the folks enjoying it and checking it out.
Yeah, well, we'll be hearing little bits of it as the show goes on. Victor.
Yes, sir.
Star, writer, The Great Chameleon. This is an unusual story. I think we can say there's a lot of different elements here, but you play someone who is a master of disguise who has been in jail for 3 or 4 years and then gets out and has to keep a couple of steps ahead of a parole officer played by Robert and a number of other people. And you do that by disguising yourself. So tell me where this idea came from.
It came from karma first thing in life because the character goes to prison and thinks that he's going to come out and get his money, but the stuff of his life that's come when he comes out of prison, where his niece gets picked up, where that's how life goes. The things we do are the things we pay for. So for him to investigate, to find out where the missing niece is, he becomes all these different characters, which these characters were developed by studying different cultures and different people. And I mean, working with Robert Davi, great actor, been around a long time, and also Stacy Keach and Nick Mancuso.
Yeah.
It was just wonderful to work with such great actors. And I mean, Robert was very kind to me, helped me, whatever I needed in every way throughout the movie. And I mean, just fantastic working with these guys.
Robert, I'll put you on the spot. How did you help Victor through this?
Well, first off, the film is it's one of these surreal kind of pieces. If you can think of Cubism.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you want to take an art form and what Picasso did to a painting. Yep. So while it has a reality to it, the political incorrectness of the film is something that I think pushes the envelope. I recently in L.A. talked about on a couple of TV stations about how I feel political incorrectness or political correctness, quote unquote, is hurting our spontaneity. And I had never done anything that had this kind of broad and also the kind of interesting, I would say, partly crude aspect to it. It's kids. Like, okay, I have my 12-year-old boy who's watching an Adam Sandler film. Right. I would never watch some of those films. I love the things, but they wouldn't necessarily be for me. This film is that kind of a thing. It has that juvenile where you're going to laugh and you're going to do things. And the thing that I did help a little bit was when we saw the film, I just gave some input in terms of the final thing. Right. But Victor is extremely talented. He is able to incorporate all these different characters that he's met when he was a construction worker. And he does a Scotsman, he does an Indian, he does a Chinese guy. And it's a satirical approach. And it reminded me of the Commedia dell'arte.
Right.
When the Italians had this commedia, this free-flowing kind of thing. So there was a lot of mayhem on the set. and I exposed myself pretty much, frighteningly so. And I never thought that the film would get the kind of exposure it's about to get. I really thought it would be in a dusty corner somewhere. So
he told me that on the cab ride over. He goes, I never thought this thing would go anywhere. He goes, I was coming into town doing my thing, and he goes, look at this now. So, it's a lot of fun. You know what it is? I'm a kid in the sandbox.
Right.
That's all it is having fun. I love what I'm doing. Robert loves what he's doing. And, I mean, Stacey, we had a lot of fun. But, I mean, it's a business. But I'm still a kid. So, if people like it, I hope people laugh. I hope people enjoy themselves, whatever it may be. Somebody depressed, because we're living in a kind of depressed world right now where people are down. There's wars, there's famine, there's all kinds of things going on. So, you know what? If I can take you for 90 minutes, make you smile a little bit and forget about all those things we worry about, mortgages, a lot of the children today are messed up. So, if it takes you away for that 90 minutes, then, I've done my job. It's for an audience. We'll make them smile a little bit because everything that's out, it's look around us today, the world has changed, morals, the children. I'm working on something right now. 6-year-old kids are suicidal. And I was through a two-way glass, and I'm working on a documentary to help them. And I looked at this stuff, and I said, wow, what's wrong with our world today?
When we come back, we'll pick up right there where you're listening to Extra Entertainment Extra. My guest in studio, Robert Davi. We'll hear a bit more of his music from the album Davi Sings Sinatra on the Road to Romance. We'll talk about The Great Chameleon with Victor Altamare. Stay with us. Hey, movie lovers and citizens of Earth. Welcome back to Extra Entertainment Extra. I'm Richard Crouse. We're listening to the melodious tones of Robert Davi from Davi Sings Sinatra on the Road to Romance. We're here to talk about The Great Chameleon, which is playing at the Royal Theatre in Toronto right now this weekend. And you're also being given a star on the Italian Walk of Fame. It's a big weekend for you.
Yeah, big weekend. Big week. The album opens up, and I get this star from the Italian, the Italian Walk of Fame. And I think the most vibrant Italian community outside of Italy is what I'm told in Canada and Toronto especially.
Yeah, well, when you spend some time down there, you'll see the food, the people. You'll be on Johnny Lombardi Way. Johnny Lombardi is legendary in Toronto.
Him,
so
and then of course the Great Chameleon plays outside that theater at the Royal. So it's a fun weekend.
It's a fun weekend for you. So thanks so much. And Victor Altamare also join us. He is. Writer and star of The Great Chameleon. It's at the Royal Theatre this weekend, and it will open across the country in coming weeks. So wherever you're listening to this right now, keep your eyes open for the listings in your area. I've just pulled up your IMDb page, Robert, and I've tilted it away so that you can't see it.
Right. I have not seen the page he's looking at.
Okay, so as an actor, how many credits do you think that you have?
I don't know. Maybe 75?
No.
4?
Yeah, you're working more than you thought. 123 television and movies. That's and when you think back, I mean, your first movie was with Frank Sinatra. We have a photograph of it here.
Yeah.
And, from that day, did you think, 30 years later, you'd still be kicking it, making records and making movies? Did you ever think the career would have that kind of longevity?
You don't consciously think of it, but, you're in for the long haul. It's a marathon. It wasn't. See, today's expendable entertainment in a lot of ways is different.
Right.
Kids coming up are different. You're going to have the flavor of the month, and then it's gone, and the reality shows and all of that stuff. But to continue on, and to still do work that the classical things like the Iceman coming up, and I'll be doing a film with James Franco in July, and the music for me though, Richard, is like really the crowning achievement for me, because it encompasses all of who I am.
Right.
And I started out as a singer and started studying, and I studied opera in Florence and then in New York at Juilliard, and always knew that at some point I would get back to the music. And I directed a film, I don't know if you saw it, called The Dukes.
I haven't seen it.
You should check it out.
I will check it out.
With me and Chaz Palminteri and Peter Bogdanovich.
Oh.
Very cute little film about a doo-wop group. And I did one song in that several years ago, and that was me toying with wanting to go back into the singing. And then now the album comes out, and it went to number 6, as I said, on Billboard Jazz in the States. And I hope that the listeners out there will go to Amazon or HMV and iTunes and check out Davi Sings Sinatra.
Absolutely.
After they see The Great Chameleon.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot going on this weekend. Victor, when we come back, we're going to talk about how Stacy Keach and Robert Davi got involved in your film, which was shot here in Toronto. And we'll discuss The Great Chameleon a little bit more. Robert, you play tough guys in movies so often. I also want to ask you if people are surprised when they find out that you're a singer of romantic ballads as well. So stay with us. We'll be back after this. Hey, movie lovers and citizens of Earth. Welcome back to Extra Entertainment Extra. I'm Richard Crouse. Joining me in studio from The Great Chameleon, we have Victor Altamare and Robert Davi. And that was the voice of Robert Davi that we just heard. And, we don't have a whole lot of time, but I forgot to mention the record is called Davi Sings Sinatra on the Road to Romance, and it was recorded in the same studio in Los Angeles, Capitol Records building that Frank recorded in.
Capitol Records.
Must have blown your mind.
Oh, yeah, it was great. On the microphone.
Yeah.
On the Neumann mic, and with Phil Ramone and Al Schmidt, who did Sinatra's album, and also in Studio B and Studio C, where we mixed it. I mean, everything that he did at Capitol there. Was thrilling.
The Great Chameleon is playing at the Royal Theatre in Toronto, and keep your eyes open across the country for showtimes in the coming weeks there. But tell me, as the star and writer of this, and you're with Fearless Films, that's your company that made this movie, how do you get Robert Davi involved in coming to Toronto and making this movie?
When I wrote the script, I had Robert in my mind. I mean, Robert's a great actor, and I had to deal with some things that I didn't know, about the character, because Robert's such a serious actor. But I mean, Robert's a great actor, and when we wrote it, and I talked to Robert, we sent the script to the agent. I mean, I was so happy when Robert agreed, and I mean, he came on and just created a character. How can he just teaches you, work along the way. And I remember I said something to him.
Well, first, let me, before I do a little research of things, I don't just, and I looked up Victor's stuff and his Chicho Mangucho character, which I think is hysterical.
Right.
And he has, like I said, it's a formless kind of comedic improvisation that out of the mayhem they create a structure. But once he gets that structure down, he's as good as any of those guys. His characters are funny, so I saw that potential, and again, had not done any broad-stroked comedy that had pushed the envelope, and so that's basically when it came to me, and then that's how you get, got me involved, and then talking to Victor, who's a terrific person, and we became very close friends during the filming of everything. We may not see eye to eye on everything, but you go with the flow.
But it's those sparks that sort of feed the creativity,
Oh,
right?
absolutely, it feeds. And he's got what's the Gagarin? He's got a madman as a
Goran
director.
Glazik, who's the director of the picture. And Robert always says, "Yeah, you're just two delusional guys. Have fun, guys."
All he
always
wanted,
says that to me.
he goes, mayhem. I want mayhem. I go, what about story and character? Just give me more mayhem. This is what the youth wants. I says, hey, who the hell? Like, nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
Look at Spielberg and Lucas came out the other day.
And said,
Did you hear what
listen,
they
Hollywood's going to implode any
Hollywood's
second.
going to implode.
Yeah.
They just said Hollywood's ready to implode. And you talked about earlier off the air, Richard, about where are the clubs?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in L.A. there are some, the nightclub is Vibrato.
Yeah.
New York has some of them. Those clubs are popping up more and more.
Old school club. We're talking old school like Copacabana style clubs.
Copacabana, where a guy like myself can go in there and 300 people can get entertained in an intimate style, And one of the reasons that live entertainment, and especially that music, is the Shakespeare of America. It's the golden age of American music, the American songbook that Michael Bublé loves, and David Foster, and
Rod Stewart,
all of us,
even,
Rod Stewart.
yeah.
I mean, and it's a timeless experience, but it also has a form, and ticket prices of movies are going to be very expensive, $25, $40 eventually, like they said in that article.
Well, Spielberg thinks that when you go see a movie, because movies right now are the only thing that if a movie costs $100,000 to make or $250 million to make, it doesn't cost the consumer any more to go see the more expensive movie. And he thinks that's going to change. So you want to go see Iron Man 17, which cost $300 million to make, it's going to cost you $40 to go see it.
$40
is what his idea is.
But
Exactly.
just 1 minute. That's me. I like the films of the independents of the 70s, like Coppola, Brian De Palma,
John Cassavetes.
Yeah, absolutely. Those were guys that made films from the bottom of their heart and was passionate. I mean, now there's a lot of money, so it doesn't give a chance to a filmmaker to enter that wheel when you don't have $300 million.
Right.
So, just passion and love. I think everybody should just make films for themselves. Whatever, if you have an idea or things that, just shoot it. It's hard enough just to finish a film.
Yeah, get it done. We're out of time, but get the movie done. Get an idea, get the movie done, and what is it that he says? I want more mayhem. Fill it with mayhem. The Great Chameleon is playing at the Royal Theatre in Toronto. It will open across the country. Robert Davi's album is called Davi Sings Sinatra on the Road to Romance. We've heard little bits and pieces of it as a tease along the way. Go pick it up in your local record shop or on iTunes this weekend.
Or Amazon.
Thanks so much for listening, and tune in next week.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you,
Thank
Richard.
you.